Welcome everybody to this session of our tutorial again on West African history. Today we'll be considering a topic on early Christian missionary activity in West Africa. We want to look at the means through which the Christian religion was introduced to West Africa. Before we proceed, I would probably want to encourage you to like and share this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more instructive lectures and tutorials on this subject. The European missionary activities in West Africa was so revolutionary, in terms of the spread of Christianity. No other revolutionary, no less revolutionary and lasting impact, was felt in terms of the conversion of the African people to, foreign religion, like the missionary activities in West Africa during the 19th century. Although effort had been, put in place towards the conversion of Africans on the coast of, West Africa to Christianity as far back as the 15th century, when the Portuguese first made attempts to introduce Christianity to West Africa. In this session, we will focus on the origin of Christian missionary activities and the spread of Christianity in the 19th century, because the tutorial is focused on West Africa in the 19th century. So our trust in this session is to understand the processes, the actors, the factors that aided the spread of Christianity in West Africa in the 19th century. So we will discuss the strategies used in propagating Christianity in different parts of West Africa during the 19th century. However, from about the first decade of the 19th century, decisive strategies were taken to evangelize and proselytize the so-called barbaric people of West Africa into the Christian faith by the Europeans. The evangelical revival in Europe, accentuated by John Wesley and anti-slavery and humanitarian spirit of the age of that period, had profound effect on the conversion of indigenous people into Christianity. Initially, instead of the Quran and the sword, the Bible and the plow and commerce were the means resorted to, and the active agents in the conversion of people into Christianity, not necessarily jihad, as we have discussed in our previous section when we considered the jihad in 19th century West Africa. All right, but the host of missionary societies formed and based in Europe and America, and their African agents, mostly former or emancipated slaves, contributed to the spread of Christianity. Whereas by 1800, there were only three missionary societies operating in the whole of West Africa, namely the Society for the Propagation of the Gospel (SPG), the Wesleyan Missionary Society (WMS), the Glasgow and Scottish Missionary Society. By 1840, only 4 decades later, there were more than 15 such societies at work in various parts of West Africa. So the conversion, the European enterprise to convert and to spread Christianity was very revolutionary in the 19th century. These societies included the additional societies who came in the 19th century, included the Church Missionary Society, CMS, the North German or Bremen Missionary Society, the Basel Evangelical Missionary Society of Switzerland, then the United Presbyterian Church of Scotland, and the Society of African Missions in France, among others. During the next 3 decades, more than 10 other societies joined from USA and England, in their efforts, to spread Christianity to the uncivilized people of West Africa. Initially, they came as Christians, bringing in their churches and preachers with them. To these people were also added subsequently captives, rescued from slave ships. All of these former slaves became a pivotal instrument in the spread of Christianity. It was through the massive repatriation of slaves that Christianity spread to West Africa. Sierra Leone, for instance, became a self-consciously African community, no, Christian community, and a literate one for that matter in the spread of Christianity. Many European missionaries, of course, could not really venture into the interior of West Africa, in pursuance of their Christian enterprise in the region as a result of several challenges, medical, and public health challenges, among other issues. Many European missionaries died in a white man's grave of Sierra Leone, and as the demand for mission moved to other areas, particularly to India, fewer missionaries, went to Sierra Leone. But Sierra Leone Christians found their way back to their original homeland. So many of the slaves who had been, who were returned to Sierra Leone, for several theological, purposes, found their way, and they became instrumental in the spread of the Christian religion in West Africa. On their initiative, the Anglican and Methodist Yoruba missions, were also begun in Nigeria in 1840s through the influence of some of these, former slaves. So far from causing a withdrawal of the European nations from Africa, the abolition of the slave trade and the exploration of the interior of West Africa created problems whose solution, involved Europe in general and Britain in particular, even more, deeply in West African affairs. So the chief problem was how to achieve a global, a worldwide abolition of the slave trade, and how to enforce effectively the laws of abolition which had been passed to suppress the slave trade. This was how, the returned slaves became instrumental in, some of them. So the abolition of the slave trade was an important factor in the spread of Christianity. Perhaps without the abolition of this transatlantic slave trade, it would have become so, an Herculean task for the Europeans to, introduce Christianity into West Africa. Also, is that the abolition created a social problem both in Britain and in America, which had to be solved, namely what was to be done with the slaves. So it became so imperative for the Europeans to discard most of these slaves, after the abolition of the slave trade. So this was probably what aided, their repatriation, to Africa, especially Sierra Leone. Also, is that the abolition and the humanitarians were convinced that the trade, was a crime against humanity and a crime before God, and it should not merely be abolished, but it should also be attuned by bringing civilization, education, and Christianity to West Africa. So the slave, had up to the 19th century formed the main economic activity of the, West Coast. The abolition created an economic vacuum, which had to be filled, and this was what, Christianity became a very major instrument, in filling some of this vacuum. The final problem was whether or not the great commercial prospects created by the discovery of the mouth of the Niger should be followed up to the, Niger to be converted into commercial highways. So the humanitarian and the philanthropists attacked the social, problem first, which is the need to end the slave trade. So as early as 1772, largely through the effort of, Granville Sharp, one of the abolitionists, the Chief Justice Lord Mansfield had decreed that the slave trade was illegal in England, and every slave who set foot on English soil became automatically free. So the result of this decision was that suddenly hundreds of slaves were liberated, and most of them became unemployed, and destitute in England, and in the New World. So to overcome the plight of these freed Negro slaves, the humanitarian decided to found a colony on the west coast of Africa where the slaves could be settled. So a site on the coast of modern Sierra Leone was chosen, and as early as 1787, about 290 black men, 41 black women, 70 white prostitutes, and 6 white children, 38 officials, and craftsmen with their families, sailed from England, to Sierra Leone. They landed on the site in May 1787 and began the formation of modern Sierra Leone. The abolitionists found themselves unable to bear the increasing cost of the administration of this new colony. They therefore handed the young colony to the British government in 1807, the year in which the slave trade was abolished. So the population of Sierra Leone increased rapidly, mainly through the importation of thousands of slaves rescued and set free by the British naval vessel which patrolled the high sea. And by the 1880s, Sierra Leone of today and its Creole population had emerged. In the United States also, the fear that the free slaves might instigate the enslaved to rebel or to rebel against the authority might increase their agitation for independence. This also led to the foundation of Liberia in 1821. Of course, which eventually attained independence in 1847. Besides saying to the nursing of these young colonies. However, the humanitarian and abolitionists also set themselves the task of bringing pressure to bear on the British government to achieve a worldwide abolition of the slave trade and its effective suppression in West Africa. As a result of this pressure and the favorable response it received, all the European countries had passed response it received. Almost all the European countries had passed acts abolishing the slave trade by the 1830s. So we noted that the humanitarian devoted an even greater portion of their time and resources in spreading Christianity in Africa, West Africa. The essence was to spread Christianity and European culture in West Africa, as we have noted. Indeed, they considered it such an important means of atoning for the sins against Africa through the 4 years of the obnoxious transatlantic slave trade, as well as ending slavery between 1792 and 1804. They were instrumental in the formation of a number of missionary societies. I've highlighted in the previous video the number of European missionary groups who came, all right, including the Wesleyan Missionary Society and the Baptist Missionary Society, the Presbyterian Church of England, and all of them. The first of these modern society to send out missionaries to West Africa was the Wesleyan Missionary Society, which we have noted. It may be recalled also that the earlier efforts were made by the Moravian missions and the Society for the Propagation of the Gospel, which I also mentioned. But all of these efforts were not successful. But the most successful and profound initiatives and efforts were made by the Wesleyan Missionary Society. In 1795, the Wesleyan Mission Society sent out a party of mechanics and preachers to Sierra Leone, as I noted in the previous video, and it extended its activities to the Gambia in 1821 and to Ghana in 1834, then to Yoruba land in 1840s. The Glasgow and Church Missionary Society in 1806 also made tremendous efforts, though these three societies were joined by many other societies from all over the world between 1820s and 1860s. So these new societies that came during this period from 1820s to 1860, they included but not limited to the North German or Bremian Missionary Society, which operated in Togo. We have the Basel Evangelical Missionary Society from Switzerland. They operated, converted people to Christianity in Ghana. Then United Presbyterian Church of Scotland operated in Calabar. The Society of French Mission from France in Ivory Coast were more dominant in Ivory Coast, Dahomey, and Benin. And finally, more than 10 of them from the United States of America, which operated in Liberia and Sierra Leone, converted thousands of people to Christianity, including in Yoruba land. So these missionary societies, however, did not confine themselves to building churches, preaching the gospel, and converting Africans to Christianity. All the missionaries paid attention to the development of agriculture. As I've noted in the previous section, the doctrine of the plow and the Bible was a critical factor in the spread of Christianity. On the one hand, Africans were given the Bible to to understand, to be Christians. They were also given the plow to cultivate, to engage in agriculture for the whole essence of European capitalism, which was to extract surplus materials and resources from West Africa. So attention was given to the cultivation of commodity crops as a substitute for the slave trade, and to the rising to raising the standard of living of Africans. They introduced new methods of plantations and experimentation farms, and taught the Africans new methods of producing and preparing commodity crops for export. Of course, the major commodity crops in West Africa included cocoa, groundnut, palm kernel, palm oil, rubber, cotton, tobacco, among other crops. For instance, in Ghana, the Methodists established coffee, cloves, cinnamon, and orange plantation in Cape Coast, and in Beulah, 7 miles from Cape in 1840s, were vast plantations of cocoa and rubber. The Basel missionaries set up cocoa plantation also at Akropong, from where they supplied poles and seedling to farmers, but their efforts in this didn't achieve much result. Some of the societies also, missionary societies, also formed trading companies to buy these products and sell worthwhile goods to the people. So the entire European missionary activities in West Africa had its economic undertones. So it was not genuinely an effort to convert the people to Christianity, but it was also for the essence of European colonial capitalism in West Africa. The Basel Trading Society in Ghana formed the Basel Trading Company, now known as the UTC, in 1859, while the Church Missionary Society (CMS) formed the West African Company in Nigeria in 1863. They also tried to persuade Africans and their kings to stop some of their inhuman customs, such as human sacrifices, and all the like. So they also introduced new architecture, suitable for the tropics, and were certainly the first, of course, the first to introduce. It was through this effort that bricklaying, stone house, and corrugated iron sheets, roofing were introduced into West Africa. The greatest contribution of the missionary society, however, was in the field of education. There was a remarkable progress, revolution in terms of the introduction of Western education, which was one of the major focal point of European missionary societies. They set up elementary and secondary schools as well as training colleges. By 1841, for instance, the CMS had 21 elementary schools in Sierra Leone. And in 1845, it founded 2 secondary schools, one for boys and the other for girls. As early as 1827, it established the Fura College, which exists to this day. Also, until 1940, Fura Bay was only the institutions for university education throughout the whole of West Africa. Of course, subsequently, several tertiary institutions emerged in West Africa. The education work of the missions in Ghana and Nigeria was even more spectacular, such that by 1846, the Wesleyan Society had set up 4 girls' schools and 20 boys' schools in Ghana. And in 1876, it opened the first secondary school in Ghana, now known as Mfantisipin School. The Basel Mission also opened a number of boarding schools, and in 1856, they established the Akropong Presbyterian Training College. In addition, the Missionary Society and the humanitarians also devoted some time and resources to linguistic studies, with a view to reducing the African languages to writings and teaching their converts how to read the Bible in vernacular. So in 1880s, most of the leading West African languages such as Cheme, Twi, Ga, Yoruba, Hausa, Efik had been writing grammar books and dictionaries, had been prepared, and the Bible had been translated into some of these African languages. All aspect of the life of the Africans were influenced by the activities of these missionary societies. One of the main results was the emergence of a new type of African educated class. Christian having European taste in clothing, in food, in drinks, in dance, in music, were exposed through reading European literatures to the ideas, and cultures of Europeans, from abroad. But still, maintaining his African roots, many Africans were still much, intricately attached to the African culture and ways of life. But in their works, these missionaries often encountered opposition, from African rulers, and of course, most of their efforts were also hindered. In the case of Nigeria, for instance, as a result of the civil war, that erupted, that was prevalent in the 19th century. Of course, most of them appeal, often to their own government for protection and the establishment of new law and order for an effective, missionary activities in the interior of West Africa. Some of these appeal were heeded, and this partly accounts for the annexation of Lagos in 1861. I talked about Abeokuta, the British intervention in Abeokuta. This was also part of the effort to pave way for European conversion of Africans to Christianity. There were several invasions. The Jebu issues in the 1890s, and the Benin were probably not exonerated from the need to pave way for the European missionary enterprise in West Africa. But most of them were not at the time thought they were finally used as an excuse. Moreover, the missionaries looked down on everything African art. It has to be said that there was a relegation and denigration of African culture, values, and systems. Most of the missionaries looked down on African art, music, dance, systems, culture, and even naming, even marriage, and all these traditional values. The activities therefore created divisions within African society and retarded African development of indigenous African culture. In their educational works, they also tended to concentrate on reading and writing and arithmetic, in addition to agricultural studies, which were needed for the spread of European capital in the colonies. At this same time, Africans do own a debt of gratitude to the missionaries. In Nigeria, for instance, Samuel Ajayi Crowther was the outstanding African Christian leader of his time who played a significant role in the spread of Christianity. Born in Egba, was a typical Yoruba man, in what is now southwest Nigeria. He was captured, by slave raiders when he was, in his teen, and was whisked, abroad, but was intercepted. So, but his ship was intercepted by the British warship, and Ajayi was taken to Sierra Leone. So, several African, agency played, an important role in the spread of Christianity, notably the repatriated slaves. Outstanding contributions were made by these repatriated slaves, by the Europeans during the 19th century. Most of them laid the foundation of the modern churches and other educational systems in various parts of West Africa. So, in most cases, they contributed to the establishment of Western schools or Western institutions, and spread European value system in West Africa. Of course, I've mentioned the role played by Ajayi Crowther. So, in conclusion, Christian missionary activities and the abolition of the transatlantic slave trade laid the foundation for colonization of the hinterland, of West Africa, during the 19th century. Christianity of course, came, much later, if you compare it to Islam, and it was also very, very revolutionary, in the same way, the jihad, actually revolutionized the Hausa state in the 19th century. It was through the efforts of the missionaries that several Christian missionary schools, were established in various parts of West Africa, and this, paved way for the emergence of the educated class, in the 19th and the 20th century. Thank you.